This is How Do I Do This? The show for anyone asking, is it just me or is this a lot?
Ryan, this is your mother. I just wanted to tell you that I've been praying for you and praying that God will give you many, many happy occasions in your new home, that it will be a home filled with His love and His devotion, and that you will have more happiness there than you ever thought you could have. I love you, and I know you're busy. That's the reason I said don't have to call me back. I love you. Bye.
Yep, that was my mom, Sharon. You'll meet her in a second. She's part of everything I do, especially now. Welcome to the first episode of How Do I Do This with Ryan. I'm your host, Ryan, and I've been asking myself that question every day since my mom died. Before you turn off this podcast and think this is not for me, I invite you to have a seat at my table and consider that maybe this is for you. Even if it's just from a personally nosy perspective, we are really good at that in the South. How Do I Do This is not just the title. It's what I've been asking myself since the moment I heard my mom pass. It's the very first question I called and asked my best friends, Rachel and Ellen. I called and asked them, how do I tell my son? How do I tell my husband? What do I do next? I was absolutely dumbfounded. It's also a little bit of irony because as an attorney, my career is built on being the one with the answers, the calm voice in the storm. I'm Kermit the Frog, controlling the chaos and wrangling the Muppets. I'm the professional who's supposed to know what to do and the friend who always has a plan. But as I quickly learned, grief is universal. It doesn't care about skin color, titles, degrees, political affiliations, religious or not leanings. And like grief, we all come into this world because of a mother, and with all the complications that go along with being a child to an imperfect mom. Mine and my mom's relationship was no different. How Do I Do This is also the thing I think we all bring to our moms. She is our very first Google search. From advice on how do I spell the word car, mommy, to friendship drama in middle school. Eventually for me, how do I get this baby to sleep? And now, how do I live without you? You should know that this show is not just grief associated with death. Grief can look like any form of identity loss. Career loss, divorce, midlife unraveling, the dissolving of a friendship, a surprise medical diagnosis, becoming an empty nester. We're going to cover the entire grief buffet. You don't have to be mourning a death to be grieving. If something in your life has fallen apart, this is the space for you to maybe figure out how to take those shattered pieces and create something new. And we're not going to do it with toxic positivity either. That's not realistic. This is not about a perfect mother-daughter relationship. To be clear, there was a lot we didn't see eye to eye on. We had some hard years, some challenging times. So don't expect all kitty cats and rainbows. We're going to do it with tea, truth, maybe some tears. And if you know me well, which you'll get to know me, occasionally an F-bomb or two. So if you're a pearl clutcher, beware. It's for anyone asking the hard, messy, beautiful questions. How do I heal? How do I laugh again? How do I live? As I record this, it's only a little over 6 months since my mom unexpectedly passed away. But like you, a lot of labels also define me. I'm a wife, a mom, a media and entertainment attorney, a writer, a friend, a PTA volunteer, an Episcopalian, a creator, an advocate for all humans, a dog mom, proud Swiftie, health enthusiast, Southern, if you hadn't picked up on that already, book nerd, pretend gourmet chef, and perhaps Elton John and Kermit the Frog's biggest fans. Much like my mom, I love anything and everything sparkly, glittery, over the top, and a little bit too much. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm champagne, and sometimes a spicy margarita. So, speaking of tea, and a quick detour before we get into the emotional wreckage, I need to tell you about hot tea. Long before it was in the Urban Dictionary, my depression-raised Southern grandmother Mabel was pouring and spilling the tea over actual hot tea almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day. I was raised in her house, and I have memories of church ladies going and coming. And while they were sometimes discussing what would be brought on Sunday evenings for fellowship, oftentimes that tea was real tea, and by that I mean gossip. I also learned some of my biggest and important lessons in life sitting around this actual table and having tea with her. This podcast is meant to feel like sitting down in her kitchen or your mom's living room where truth is served hot. So grab your favorite beverage of choice, pull up a chair, and let's figure this out together. I didn't plan to start a podcast. Being real, I don't know how to do a podcast. Hence also the title, How Do I Do This? This is absolutely brand new territory for me. Also, who the hell has time to grieve, cry on mic, edit audio, and be an attorney along with all the other obligations I mentioned? This feels a little wacko. You may think it's a crazy way to grieve. That's okay. I do too. Both things can be true. But what I've learned is that grief gives zero shits about your Google spreadsheet. And grief is not Mother's Day. It's not Christmas. It's a million tiny moments. It's going to the grocery store and knowing that when I leave the grocery store, there's no one to call to tell what I bought. No one to ask what was on sale. My husband cares what I'm cooking for dinner, but not in the way my mom did. There's no one to call when my son is sick to say, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. What else would you do? There's nobody that cares that I've locked the door when I travel for work. As she would remind me every time that I had to check in with her, there's weirdos and perverts everywhere. So it's the everyday cadence of living. That's what grief is for me. And in those everyday moments, I realized I couldn't keep holding all of this alone. This meaning the feelings I was not prepared to feel, the loneliness, and that I wasn't ready for our story to be finished. And maybe you can't either. I was thrust into a place of unknown, a place where I haven't lived, a world where I was me, but there is no her. And I'm left with questions. So I started a journey of trying to find answers to those questions. I leaned into tools that I knew had worked for me in the past. I decided to explore some other methods of healing. And not healing because I'm broken. You're not either, by the way. But rather healing so I can figure out how to become this new version of me. So, let's talk about Sharon, my mom. The day she passed was a blur. But as a firstborn type A daughter, I went into action mode. After calling my besties, of course. I wanted to know how I could help my dad, how to help my son and husband, and how to give her the tribute she deserves. My dad assigned me my most challenging writing assignment to date. He asked me to write her obituary. I was not about to tell the man who had lost his wife of nearly 53 years no, so I agreed. I write a lot. I write for a living. I write as my job. And in preparing to write, I did all my usual things, but nothing was working. I decided to take a note from Ernest Hemingway, one of mine and Mom's favorite authors. So I got drunk. True story. I poured champagne. I told the husband to keep the glasses coming. I cried. I wrote. I drank. I wrote some more. I attempted to share something truthful. Blame it on the champagne, but all of a sudden, a quote and movie I had not thought about in decades came to mind. You know, she was a lady, and a lady always knows when to leave. Tawanda, Fried Green Tomatoes, a movie we both loved. There's this moment at the very end of the movie where the quote comes from. For those of you who have not seen the movie or read the book, the story centers around two women, Iggy and Ruth, whose friendship spans love, loss, life, and death in the Deep South. The final scenes of the movie is Ruth dying of cancer, and Iggy is by her side. Ruth tells her, I'm going to say goodbye now. A lady always knows when to leave. It hits different when you lose the person who was the quintessential Southern lady in the room. In that moment, I remembered when my mom and I watched that movie together. I was a teenager, perhaps. It's all a little fuzzy. But I was struck with the fact that she told me, when I pass, I want you to use that quote. Maybe it was the champagne, maybe divine intervention. So that's how I started her obituary. The nuance in that quote is that it's not about overstaying your welcome. It's about trusting when your part of the story has been told. No lingering, no fight. In a quiet and dignified way, slipping out of this life. So I started the obituary with that quote. Here's some more of what I said and what you should know about her. Miss Sharon, and not Miss Duffy, as she was quick to tell you was her mother-in-law, Mabel Duffy, my grandmother, I mentioned her above, you remember, was a wife, mother, writer, poet, educator, a bibliophile, a lover of American history, an incredible cook, an appreciator of fine china, good Southern etiquette, Elvis, and a Christmas decoration aficionado. Seriously, she could not pass a Christmas shop without going in and also buying something. She had service for 20 in our house in Christmas china alone. And when I say service, I'm not talking about just plates and cups. They were stemware, flatware, salt and pepper shakers, the works. There were so many decorations at our house that our house never looked the same year from year for Christmas, and there was always a rotating out. My family now jokes that we'll still be finding Christmas decorations hidden nooks and crannies for decades to come. With a memory like a steel trap, of course, unless she didn't want to remember, all Southern women know that rule, she was quick to debate anyone on the origins of and the history behind a line in the United States Constitution or a passage from the Bible. Always inquisitive and suspect, she never quite believed Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, or John F. Kennedy left this world in the way that we were all told. Yes, she debated the Constitution over dinner. It's probably why I became an attorney. Yes, she thought Elvis was alive. And for a while, I'm not sure she was wrong. Her 52-year-long love affair with Terry began with a meet-cute, usually only reserved for romantic comedy movies, of a chance meeting in the college cafeteria with him peacocking for any girl's attention and her in a white tennis skirt. It started with my dad declaring to the other hormonal males at the table, "I'm going to marry that one," and concluded with a devotion to each other through all the ups and downs, building businesses, building dreams, and building a family. She was the backbone and brains behind Terry's dreams, aspirations, and career accomplishments. What you need to know is that my father built and developed radio stations. He made them profitable. It's also where I spent most of my time after school. And while my dad received the awards, the accolades, and accomplishments, it was actually my mom analyzing the finances and using her intuition to guide the ship that was not only a business, but a family business. It was an exercise in feminism back in the 80s because she chose to be in the background and stay at home and raise us, while my dad was the one who received the praise. Sharon knew that being a mother was her highest and best calling. In addition to her God-given children, her home was a place where friends of the children felt welcomed, loved, and greeted with advice, whether they wanted it or not. And if not wanted, they knew the advice was rooted in love and genuine care for their well-being and development as a human. The night she passed, I called my two best friends growing up, Marcy and Christopher. And they had so many stories to tell me about their memories of my mom and what it was like to grow up in our house. We had traditional tea parties. She taught manners classes to my friends. She had a determination to know that when we went out into the world that we knew how to act like we had some raisin about us. You definitely knew how to come correct to any situation. Dictators oftentimes have less rules and regulations than my mom did. Sharon grew up loving the arts, music, and dancing. She performed in one of the first local Mickey Mouse Mouseketeer clubs at the Birmingham Theater and was a majorette. This greatly influenced how she raised me, her love of the arts. She was insistent I took ballet classes, music lessons, piano, flute, and voice. She drugged me to every theater production in the Southeast, even though we lived in a very, very small town in South Alabama. If it was within driving distance, we went. She made sure that I had speech and debate lessons and opportunities to learn public speaking, which were not robust in small town Alabama, which meant we had to travel. She invested in that in me. To be educated meant to be well-read and well-versed in not only War and Peace, Chaucer, Shakespeare, but also the latest biography written by the celebrities of the day. She wanted that even for my son, as you will hear.
Hey, this is Mom. I wish tonight, when you read his books, that y'all read The Velveteen Rabbit and tell him how special that book is to you, and read the part in it about you be loved until your fur is off. That was one of the clues on Jeopardy tonight about where did that club from, being loved till your fur is all worn off. It's so sweet and such a beautiful memory. I love you. Bye.
And she did watch Jeopardy almost every night, and she would have given any of those people a run for their money. She suffered no fool and had zero patience for aspiring to do anything less than your best. She knew who she was, and she was, as she put it, a child of God with limited time on this earth. If she loved you, you damn well knew it. And if she didn't, well, you probably knew that too. The quintessential Southern belle who believed in the good of humanity, loving people well, a nicely penned handwritten thank you note, and celebrating with a perfect table setting for any occasion. Her presence here on this earth as a mother and educator will be missed every day. So while the obituary is absolutely the truth, the other side of the coin is that our relationship was not perfect, but it was ours. It was deep and layered and full of weird traditions and passive-aggressive messages that flow between mothers and daughters and love. It's no mystery, and she would tell you this, it was hard for me to be her firstborn child. Before me, she carried a baby to full term, and she had a stillborn child. So I was her rainbow baby. I was her doll, as she referred me to, the one who saved her broken heart. She told me this from a very young age, and we now know that putting that kind of pressure on a young child was a heavy burden to carry. But I did. Her expectations of me were so high. And then came my siblings. And so I wanted to be good. I pitched in. I wanted to please. But the truth is that from a very young age, I wasn't anything like her. I wasn't interested in learning to cook. Things obviously have changed. No desire to bake. No desire to do anything with crafts or homemaking. Crafts, hard pass. Michael's is my version of hell. American history, especially pre-Civil War history related to the South, I had zero interest in. Whereas she loved Gone with the Wind and loved the ideal of Scarlett O'Hara being this damsel in distress. I watched the movie and from a young age thought, this woman needs to get it together. So it must have been hard to have your very first child, your rainbow baby, so different from you. Instead, I wanted to hang out at the radio station at transmitter sites. I was interested in leaving small town Alabama and growing from a very early age. I found out the night that she died and having a conversation with my dad that part of the reason she was so hard on me is that she wanted to protect me. My dad told me that she would say, you fill her heart with all of these dreams, and what if she can't achieve them? She's going to have her heart broken, and I can't stand for her to have her heart broken. She was tough on me, much tougher than she was on my siblings. My dad will tell you that, and she would tell you that. As punishment, I was forced to memorize Bible verses because clearly the devil was in me. I had to write book reports over the summer. There were very strict rules related to dating, the church, going to church that never really applied to my siblings. I honestly grew up with the attitude that there was zero room for error. Makes me a damn fine attorney today, but in those times, it was challenging. I often grew up feeling like I was loved because of my performance and my ability to please. I now know that that's not the truth. My views on her were very outdated. I did not like the manners classes. I did not like the tea parties. Again, things have changed because apparently I'm hosting a podcast over a tea party. I felt that she was stuck in history because she loved it so much. Even at a young age, I was very angry that she did not take care of herself like the other mothers I saw. I felt torn between her loving me and saying she wanted me to fly, but at the same time, her need to hold me back. It was a heavy burden to carry. But then my son was born, and a lot changed. We finally had something in common. And from the time my son was born, there was really never a cross-word spoken. We talked many times a day, even though she never had text message or the Facebook, as she says. In her declining health, that was a result of her not taking care of herself. I tried to find a way to love her as she was and for who she was. It was an exercise in patience for both of us as she lost her independence and vision. There were still arguments, especially around politics and the Constitution, but they were only surface arguments after my son was born. Our earthly relationship ended in a place of peace and love. This past Labor Day, we took an amazing trip with my son to Disney World. She was so insistent that she go, and she wanted to surprise him. And a memory that will always live rent-free in my head is seeing him turn the corner, and she's sitting there, and he's so excited. And she said, "You wanted a surprise at Disney," and so she had shown up. One of our last conversations, she told me, "I'm so proud that you're so healthy and so strong in ways that I never could be." Of course, I dismissed her because I was like, "Mom, what are you talking about? Let's just go on. Tell me what you're cooking for dinner." You also need to know that she had a wicked sense of humor. A few years ago for Christmas, she bought me a set of steel balls. She said, "God didn't give them to you, but you've definitely earned your own set of balls now." So, if you've ever lost someone, you know there's a before and after. The version of you that existed with them and the you're trying to figure out now. The bitch I was on November 22nd left the building the morning of November 23rd, and she hasn't shown back up since. She actually took the manual with her. I call her pre-grief lawyer Barbie Ryan. She was that girl. Firstborn, oldest grandchild, planned vacations with the precision of a military strategist, and a holiday event like a damn Hallmark movie producer. Every detail planned and considered. You needed a backup plan? She had 5 in a binder, color-coded. I never cried in public. I truly believed that if I planned well enough, worked harder than everyone else, nothing could touch me, let alone break me. Pre-grief lawyer Barbie Ryan is so cute, optimistic. I love her. She achieved a lot. I miss her. She was so sparkly, predictable. And now I'm a bit more like a shattered disco ball being held together with dry shampoo, coffee, and under-eye concealer. So that's me. That's my mom. This is my real life process. Your everyday mom figuring out how to do mom life. Well, all of this without her mom. So what can you expect going forward? Storytelling, good Southern storytelling. A peek into what I'm doing and trying to help me become this new version of me, along with what is working and what is not working. Guests who don't suck, because if I want to sit down and talk with somebody over hot tea, they're going to be great. We're going to have mental health professionals, religious scholars, and we're even going to talk with a medium and a psychic. With honest conversations and zero fluff. Definitely chatter that will be unbecoming of a Southern lady, as my mother used to say. And some solo episodes where you may just hear from me. But I hope that you take away humor, pain, and hope. Unlike my day job as an attorney, I'm not here to give answers. I don't have any. I'm here to ask better questions. Better questions of myself, better questions of those around me, better questions from what I deem God and everything in between. And I'll probably cry and cuss while doing so. As we close today's chapter, remember both things can be true. You can be an absolute wreck and still show up. And one last word from my mom.
Happy birthday, sweetheart. This was an anniversary of the most wonderful thing happening to me. I got to be your mommy. I love you. Bye.
That's it for today. You can ache for who you were before it all changed and still become someone new. Grief and growth sit at the table, passing notes when we're not looking. This tea, this time, this space is part of your healing, and it's part of mine too. You're not broken. You're just brewing. Follow along on Instagram at How Do I Do This Pod and on YouTube at How Do I Do This Pod. DM me on Instagram and tell me what kind of grief you're holding right now. Seriously, I'll read every one and will probably be the person to respond back. Tell me what you have tried that you think might help me. I'm open to trying anything that's not illegal. Your story might find its way into one of our future episodes.